Hello, I'm going to show you how to use the Maya interface and how to get started with Maya 2018. First, what I want to do is discuss how you can download Maya for free if you're a student or an educator. Simply go to the autodesk.com website up here and it'll take you to this page. On this page you'll see some breakdowns of some of the different types of software they have for architecture, engineering, product design, as well as media and entertainment collection is what I'm using, which is where you'll find 3ds Max and Maya. Now, to get it for free as a student, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page and look for free software for students here in this blue section. If you click on that, it'll take you to the education community, and you can choose many different types of products. Here you'll see Maya and 3ds Max, as well as some AutoCAD and Revit, also used for AutoCAD architecture stuff. And if we click here to see all products, you'll see that they have a full list of all their different types of products, some applications and things like that. Okay, so now back up a little bit here. Just click on the one that you want, and you can download more than just one. You can also download the media entertainment package, and that'll give you things like Maya, 3ds Max, Motion Builder, Mudbox, all in one package. You'll need to sign in to be able to download, or if you don't already have an account, you'll have to create an account. And if you're not a student or an educator, they do offer a 30-day free trial, which you can follow this link here to download it and try it out. Once you have it all set up, you can sign in, choose the version that you want to use, your operating system, language, and just pretty much follow the instructions from there to install it. So once you have Maya installed, and you also can choose from several different versions of Maya. I'm using Maya 2018. It is, at this point in time, 2018.4, which is the most current version of Maya. 3ds Max just recently came out with the Max 2019, so I imagine Maya is not too far behind. Once you open it up, you'll see that you'll start on a page similar to this. This is sort of the default for Maya. You can set it up in many different ways and save it to your own preferences. That's one of the nice things about the interface with Maya, is it seems overwhelming with all the buttons and the tabs, all the different images here, but you can pretty much customize it to your own likings. Up here in the workspace, you can see that I have it set to Maya Classic, and that's up here in the upper right hand corner. If you hit the down arrow, you'll see that there are many different sections to start with. If you wanted to start off in the standard modeling, you'll see that the tab, the animation tools down at the bottom disappeared. And then the same if you went to expert or sculpting, and I believe there's an animation one here as well. So they focus on whatever task that you're working on at the time. I've been using Maya for a while, so Maya Classic feels comfortable to me, and that's usually where I will start. Over here along the top, you'll see that it gives you the type of or version of Maya that you're using, and also gives you the name of your project. And at this point, since I just opened it, I have this as an untitled, and the asterisk at the end means it is unsaved as well. Along the top, you'll see the familiar file edit along that many Windows-based programs have. And here, if you click on File, it gives you an option to create a new scene or open a scene. Your different save scenes and save scene as settings. You have an import-export section where you can import different files as well as other Maya objects into a scene that you may be working on. You also have options to select certain things or elements inside your scene, and you can export just that, or you can export everything. You also have the ability to set it up to export to different game platforms, Unity and Unreal being the two of them here. You can do different cloud import-export as well. You have some references that you can create. You can change your views, view images, project. A project, we'll get into that in a later project, but this is where you can set your project up and then be able to use those folders that are default in the project. In this case, if I click on project window, you can see that in here you can give it a name. So you would say new if you wanted to give it a new project, and then you can tell it where you want your default location to be, and you can change any of these by clicking on the folder to the side. Right now I just happen to have mine set on my E drive, and you can see that these are the folders that would appear under this Maya project. And you can give your folders different names, but I would typically leave these alone, because when Maya goes out looking for certain things such as your images, your source images, it was going to go to this specific folder and look for it. And if you save things, it's going to save them in specific folders as well. Okay, since I'm not setting a project up yet, I'm just going to hit cancel. Alright, so as we can see, we also have recent files. So recent files would be to go in and open up a scene that you've been working in. You can see here by the names, it's under my projects, and then under my scene, so it saved it automatically to the scenes, and this was the name of that particular scene that I had. And you can have multiple scenes within your various projects. And then you can also go and open up a project, a whole project, in this case like a game asset or a character project that I've been working on. Again, here's edit. We'll talk more about what some of these do in some of my future videos. We'll be visiting what you do with delete by type. History is something that we'll do quite a bit. You can duplicate and duplicate special from in here. So a lot of the things you would expect to find typically on your edit tab in any of your Windows-based programs. Here we look at create, and under create you'll see things like NURBs. NURBs are a particular type of object that we can make in Maya, and so are polygons and polygon primitives. Again, these are the different shapes we can make. So if I clicked on sphere, you'll see that a sphere pops up here in the middle, and then we can do various things to manipulate it. We have quite a few other tools listed in here, and then we'll get into those in other videos. Then we can select all. So if I selected all, it would, if I had many objects in this, it would select all those objects. Also, we can select specific types, things. We can select by hierarchy if we wanted to select by hierarchy. What else? And we can get into some more of this later. So see here, modify again, some things that we can do in modifying our objects. We can transform. Transform has to do with the position of an object in our Maya scene. The pivot is how we rotate the pivot, or what the center point pivot would be for the object. If I had a pivot point that was off center, I could center it here. I can line objects to each other in different methods, point to point, 2 points, etc. And those are all types of things that, again, we would learn in future videos. This is just a quick how to manipulate and move things around inside of Maya. Okay, then we also have our display. So here in our display, if you were to ever open Maya up and you were missing things, you would look here in Heads Up Display, and you can see I have a few things selected here: camera names, my locks, polycount. Polycount is this over here on the side. You notice when I brought that sphere, maybe you didn't, these were all 0, but when I opened up the sphere and put a sphere here in the center, all of these populated. If I were to delete this sphere, now you see that they go to 0. If I wanted to bring an object back in here, in this case maybe a cube, you'll see that the numbers are different because this cube doesn't have as many faces in it. Faces, edges, and vertices are things that we use on our objects, and we'll get more into those as we start doing the modeling process. The grid, which is this fourplex here that you see of all these different squares, helps us kind of keep things in reference. We can use them to line our objects up if we needed it. If we uncheck it, we can completely remove it in case it's a distractor or is causing issues with what you want to see. And you can always bring it back. We also have bring it back this way, and then I can go to this little square box. If you see this square box right here on the side of any of our options in the menus, and also in other areas where I'll show you how to get to these menus, that means it's an option box. So you see grid options, and this is where we can set the parameters to our grid. Here it's a 12 by 12. Each one of these little 4 sections is 12 by 12. And I could make it massive by adding a 0 here and then hit apply, and you can see that it becomes very large at this point. Put that back to the default. And then we can set up how many grid lines, what each grid line represents. So it represents 5 units, and then we can also create subdivisions for those grids. And we have some other options to set our grids up. Okay. Then, well, we can take a look at what else is here. We have things like we can hide objects if they're in our way. We don't want them to be seen. We can show objects again. If we hidden objects and we want to show all of our last hidden objects, we can show or hide selections. We have different services, all kinds of things that we can hide or show between these two if you need to see them or you don't want to see them in your scene while you're working. Let's see here. Also have some different settings that we can change in our polygons and in our NURBs. Some settings for our animation and some rendering. And Windows. Windows, again, here's our Workspaces, which if at the beginning you can see that I'm at Maya Classic, also corresponds to the workspace up here on the right hand side. We also have some of our general editors that we can get to, which we will talk more about, things like our attribute editor and channel box, which if we look over here to the right, you can see channel box and attribute editor. Modeling toolkit are open over there, and we have different ones that we can open up for different things as we need them. Outliner is something that we would use to be able to see what objects we have currently in our display area, in our viewport. One of the things I do want to talk about here is under our settings and preferences. So under preferences, we can see that we have quite a few things that pop up that allow us to change the default settings on. In this case, our interface is what pops up first. And what I want to talk about here is under our settings. Files and projects. So remember when I opened up and showed you how our project would open, this is another place we can come and set our default location for our save directory, for our project directories. And we have quite a few other options we want to do as far as things like autosave. We can enable autosave so that it updates, saves your work, which is pretty important. As you're working, sometimes you get carried away and you may forget to save, and it might crash on you. And when it crashes, you lose all the work you've done. And you can then adjust in here whether you want it to prompt before it saves. You can limit the number of autosaves, and then you can limit how many autosaves it is. Intervals every 10 minutes, all the way up. So it depends on how often you want it to kind of do these autosaves for you. And of course, the more you have, the more it will interrupt you as you work. You can also set up where you want them to go. If you want it to go into a different folder than into your project, you can specify that here as well. Another thing I like to change when I first get set up in here is the undo. Undo in default comes up with finite, and finite means 50. In this case, you can establish a different number if you want to leave it finite and then change this number to a lower or higher. But you can undo, in this case, only 50 times if you leave it at 50. So every time you do a button stroke is an event in Maya. So if you selected an object and then selected another object and then selected another object, that would be 3 events, and those would be counted as 3 as you were undoing. And if you were working and discovered that you had caused an error or something happened, like you didn't notice that you grabbed a vertex and you accidentally merged it with another vertex on the complete opposite side and caused this really bad deformed look on your model that you didn't notice until about 100 moves later or events later, then you couldn't undo it and you would have to find another way to fix it. It's not impossible, you can do that, but sometimes the undo is the fastest way. So one of the things I like to do is I usually leave mine on infinite, and that just makes it so that I have more capability to undo things I might have accidentally done without noticing, or maybe did intentionally and it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I want to talk about, under Windows Settings and Preferences, is another spot called Plugin Manager. This is where you can manage the different plugins that you use in Maya, and you can come in here and verify that they are installed. For example, I have MASH here. You can see I have a tab up here that says MASH, and I've also turned it on so that it would load and auto load. FBX Maya, things like that are listed here. Oh, here we go. Maya to Arnold. It's listed here. It's loaded, auto load, and Arnold is listed up here. Okay, so if you ever install a plugin and you don't see it available in your Maya tabs up here, then come in here to the plugin manager and see if it's set up to load. First, look to see if it's even installed, and then look to see if it's set up to load. Okay. Alright, so these windows are the basic windows that you'll see in every mode that you have Maya set in. Right now I am set for the modeling mode, and you can see that here by this tab, modeling. If I hit the drop down arrow, you see that I have rigging choices, animation choices, and FX, and every time I change it, everything to the right of Windows changes to be specific for that type of function that I want to perform in Maya. We'll get into a lot of these later. Down here along these, underneath all of the tabs at the top, all of the menu buttons, you can see that we have additional options, things like snapping, so snap to grids, snap to curves, etc. But what I want to show you is how these functions actually work. For this menu, it expands and it condenses. So if I have one that has a little point like this on the edge, if I click on it, you can see that it expands out because there are hidden items in there. And I can click on any of these little bars in the middle, and I can then compress them or condense them down to give myself more room up here. Also, I have all of these different tabs along the top. These are my curves and surfaces, or NURBs. This is my polygon modeling set of tools. Then we have sculpting, rigging, animation. Another way to see these along the top is to come here, and this is a menu, and you can click on any one of these and it'll take you automatically to that section. So if you don't have any of your tabs, if you've hidden them, for example, in your display up here, then you can come here and you can pull them up and still get to them. It's one method. And there's also the settings to be able to set what shows on this shelf right here. So all of these are different shelves. Okay. Now these are the tools for selection. This is the lasso tool. So if I were to select lasso tool, I could lasso objects, select them, that method. Since I already had it selected, it deselected, and it selects. I have a paint selection tool with the paintbrush. This is move. So this is how I could actually move an object. And right now, let's go back to object mode. So by holding down the right mouse button in the viewport, I have this additional menu that pops up, and it gives me the ability to change some of my settings that I'm using for my tools. And in this case, my vertice, which are these little purple dots. My edge, which are the edges of the object. Zoom in a little bit better so you can see those. And then object mode, which is the entire object. And by selecting move, I can move my object. I can lift it up and down just by clicking on the different directions here. And then these allow me to move in a plane. So these little ones here, I can move it outside of the plane. Rotate does just what it sounds. It rotates on the different axes of the object. And then scale allows me to scale the object up and down, make it larger and smaller, and then I can grab the individual edges and I can reshape it based off of that. And then I can also do the same in a specific plane by grabbing one of the flat edges here, these little squares here. Those are for planes, and I can grab them and manipulate the object in that particular mode. Okay, so that's how we can kind of move the object and change its shape, size. But we still haven't talked about how to actually move in Maya. And the way to do that is if I hold the Alt key and then my left mouse button, I can now rotate my scene. So Alt and left mouse button. Alt key and the middle mouse button allows me to pan it around this way. And then Alt and my right mouse button allows me to zoom in and out like this. And also using the middle mouse button, if you have one that's a rotate button, you can rotate in and out, and it also allows you to zoom in and out. Okay, so this video has been long enough. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here, and everything else we're going to talk about will be talked about in videos where we're actually manipulating an object first to create the object and then do some animation. So as we go through the process of doing something in Maya, we'll learn some of the additional, many of the additional menus that Maya has. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time.